Okay, welcome everybody tonight to Community Development Meeting for Monday, January 31st, 2022. I'd like to let everybody know that Councilman Chad Snyder notified the clerk's office and stated that he cannot be here tonight. So let's just get that on the record. We have a few items for the Community Development Meeting, and the first is the approval of the regular meeting minutes from January 10th, 2022. Can I get a motion?
Second.
I'm sorry, who made the motion? Mrs. Mitchell, motion, seconded by Mr. Oswald.
Also question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, now, items 2 through 7, but we're going to take them one at a time. I'm going to read them all off. Mr. Brubaker is going to speak on the first one, and we'll go from there. The first one is the matter of advertising for bids and awarding contracts for the Parks and Rec playground projects at Abbey Road Park and Bell Avenue Park. Director Brubaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Ms. Reardon, Director Reardon is out of town this week and asked me, as some of you got emails from her, to address these. Items 2 through 7 are all within the same realm of business tonight. We're asking for the opportunity to advertise for bids and award the contracts for the various projects throughout our Parks and Rec program. I know Director Reardon had reached out, and some of you had reached out to her with questions. So tonight, items 2 through 7 is just looking for approval to bid and award, and the monies have been appropriated within the temporary.
Thank you. Are there any questions in regards to this one? Okay, I'll read the committee report. We've considered the matter of Abbey Road Park and Bell Avenue Park playground replacement projects. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and award a contract for said projects. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Mitchell, seconded by Mr. Oswald.
Question?
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. We're all separate, yeah. Good question. Hold on, yeah. Okay, item 2 is the matter of advertising for bids and awarding contracts for Parks and Rec playground projects at North Park. Does anyone have any questions? If not, seeing none, I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Mitchell, seconded by Mr. Oswald.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, item 4 is the matter of advertising for bids and awarding contracts for Parks and Rec air conditioning projects at West Park Recreation Center and East Park Recreation Center. Are there any questions? Mr. Oswald.
Thank you. I know that the money was figured in for the cost of putting in the air conditioning, and I'm all for that, but did anybody figure out the cost of what it's going to run that air conditioning? In the electric bill is going to be pretty high. Is that built into that budget? Thank you.
Okay, a good question. Mr. Brubaker, do you?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Oswald, no, the cost that is appropriated is for the construction of it. But I believe that the energy efficiency of the air conditioning units, according to Ms. Reardon, the cost to run them would be very similar to South Rec. It would be within their operating budget as far as their repair and maintenance.
Okay, I guess that's the only question I'd have, because I know that's going to be a hefty bill, with the size of those buildings.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I can get with Director Reardon and the Finance Director. We can kind of look and see at what South Rec's cost was, because it'll be very similar in nature. Of course, the units will be newer at West and East, but we can get that information.
Yeah, and being newer, I would assume that'd be much more efficient.
Yes.
So good deal, good deal. Are there any other questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We've considered the matter of air conditioning projects at East Rec Center and West Recreation Center. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and award a contract for said projects. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made by Mrs. Mitchell and seconded by Mr. Oswald.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, next item is the matter of advertising for bids and awarding contracts for Parks and Rec paving projects at West Park and North Park. Are there any questions? Any comments? Seeing none, I'll read the complete committee report. We have considered the matter of parking lot paving projects at West Park at the Lowell Street entrance and North Park at the eastern portion of the parking lot. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and award contracts for said paving projects. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Mitchell and seconded by Mr. Oswald.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, item 6 is the matter of advertising for bids and awarding contracts for Parks and Rec Trail Picketball courts and restrooms at West Park. Are there any questions, Mrs. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, not a question as much as a comment. I have been advocating consistently for benches along the trail, and I hope that that is still a consideration. And Mrs. Davis and I have been asking if we, and we're willing to pay for them, to have the plaques, the in remembrance plaques on the benches as well. So that's all I want to say. I want to make sure that happens. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. Are there any other questions? Comments? Mrs. Mitchell?
Sorry, one more thing. When they're redoing the, Mr. Chair, through you, when they're redoing the restrooms at West, is that going to replace the ones that are already there over by the splash pad?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the ones by the splash pad, there was brand new ones built with the splash pad. I believe these restrooms are going to be located closer to trails, so people can step off the trail and there's restrooms available, because we have the restrooms on Lowell Street, and you have the ones by the splash pad, which in essence take care of the ones that are there tied to the old building.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of West Projects Trail Pickleball Courts and outdoor restrooms. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and award contracts for said projects at West Park. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Mrs. Mitchell,
Second.
second by Mr. Lippian.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, item number 7 is the matter of advertising for bids and awarding contracts for Parks and Rec women's locker room storage rooms at North Park. Are there any questions? Comments? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We've considered the matter of North Park Ice Rink Project, women's locker room, and additional storage area. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and award contracts for said locker room and storage area projects at North Park. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Lippian,
Second.
second by Mr. Oswald.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Well, I'd say that went pretty smooth. Thank you, everybody. All of those committee reports are becoming over together, but sign each one individually, please, everyone. And if there are any other questions or any other further business, I see none. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn community development.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Mitchell, seconded by Mr. Oswald.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned, but please sign the committee reports.
Okay, welcome to the Monday, January 31st, 2022 Finance Committee meeting. First item on the agenda is the approval of the finance meetings for January 10th, 2022. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Sarah, second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. For the record, as was mentioned in the community development, Mr. Schneider will not be here for tonight's meeting. He did notify me, so for record purposes for Finance Committee. Second item on the agenda is the matter of the Chapter 165 employee salaries. I think what I'd like to do with this is to kind of encompass both items numbers 2 and 3 to cover both of these salaries that are being considered. Can I have committee report at this particular time? Yeah. Just to get it on the floor for discussion right now, we've considered the matter of the Chapter 165 employees, non-bargaining employees, so this would be to consider the matter of the non-bargaining salaries for the non-bargaining full-time employees for Chapter 165. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Mr. Brubaker, or Mayor, I don't know who's speaking on it first. For both.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll pass it to Director Brubaker, who's been doing a lot of the negotiating. But, you know, a part of what we wanted to make sure we expressed was, you know, we want to recognize employees are working really hard right now, and that some of our employees are not in unions. And so we want to make sure our approach kind of takes that in consideration of both making sure that people are being taken care of, but also not treating non-bargaining units as bargaining units. So
We've spent some time with finance and really come to, I think, what is a fair conclusion, and I'll let Director Brubaker share.
Director Brubaker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the committee. So as you know, we've been in negotiations with a multitude of our unions throughout the last number of months. Late last year, we came to an agreement with FOP. Towards the beginning of this year, just after the first of this year, we came to an agreement with AFSCME. And then last Friday, we were able to tentatively sign off on an agreement with the fire department. And they will be voting on that in the 4th, and then that will be coming to council here in a couple weeks. So as HR Director Yousefi and I and Assistant Safety Service Director Williams, we've been in these bargaining unit discussions. And throughout discussion with the administration and discussion with the finance director's office on the finances, where we are with the city, where we could be at in 2 or 3 years versus where we are now, it's obvious, as I've stated in other times, there is money on the table right now. But we don't know where that money is going to be in 2 to 3 years. So our recommendation from the administration side of things was to offer our 165 employees a 3% increase for 2022 with a $500 stipend. And that's kind of where we sit. We believe that is a fair increase for them, including the $500 bonus. Keep in mind that the bonuses typically given to the unions are considered quote-unquote signing bonuses, which the non-bargaining units don't bargain, quite honestly. So, but we've looked at that as a fair way of keeping them up to par and keeping them in line with some other things we'd like to do. But please keep in mind that when we look at this and we look at it, those 165 employees, and I've spoke to HR Director Yousefi on this, and we've been meeting, there's some other things within the 165 chapter that was changed a number of years ago that probably should be looked at, that I think the 165 employees would probably appreciate being looked at, even looking at down the road on a 3% in 2023 and a 3% in 2024 when those monies may not be there. So that's kind of where we stand, is a 3% and a $500 stipend.
Okay. Any questions for Director Brubaker at that time? Mr. Tolet.
My question is Ms. Yousefi going to speak, or is that it?
I think, yeah, at this particular time, I think Director Brubaker was kind of handling it. I know it was referred by Ms. Yousefi from HR, but Director Brubaker handled the...
I'm going to go back in time then and ask the question through you, Mr.
Sure.
President. I'm going to go back in time a little bit. One of the things that wasn't done, and until the budget was shown to me, there was not a salary study done for Muni. If we're going to link these together, there was for 165, but there was not for Muni Court employees. So the amount of compensation at that time per the budget changed in the whole fairness issue. So was that taken into consideration in the discussions, that a salary study was not done for Muni Court?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councilman Tolet, I was not directly involved when we did the salary study. It was the former HR Director Dillinger and former Safety Service Director Sawerka, but my understanding is all departments in the city were asked to participate that, including all of our elected officials. And if I'm not mistaken, the Law Director's Office chose to participate, the Finance Director's Office chose to participate, and I don't believe that Muni Court chose to participate in the salary study at this time, and maybe Ms. Deary has more to lead on that.
Law Director Deary.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. When the issue or the topic of the salary study was first initiated, and Mr. Pileski, please correct me based on your memory, none of the elected officials opted to participate, with the exception, obviously, of those departments that fell underneath the mayor. Subsequently, the Law Director's Office did agree to bring its employees on board to the salary structure, and at the same time, the Finance Director's Office brought its employees onto the salary structure. But the clerk of courts and the Muni Court judges are not presently on the salary structure. Obviously, that's something that could be revisited should they desire to want to engage in that in the future.
Thank you.
I know that Judge Bennett is here, and I don't know if Judge, at this particular time, if you're wanting to speak in regards to a letter that you had sent, because we are trying to put both of these pieces, items number 2 and 3 that are on the agenda, together as one. So, Judge, if you'd please come up. I'll preface this by the judge sent out a letter back in December 20th, 2021, with regards to those the AFSCME contract being considered, and that the history of, the AFSCME as relates to the Muni Court and the 165 employees as its entirety, and what's happened in the past and where things are at currently now. So, Judge, if you would please.
Thank you. There's a rare occasion here tonight. 3 branches of government are gathered together. We have the administrative branch, the executive branch with the mayor and Mr. Brubaker and Ted. We have the legislative branch with all of you, and the judicial branch with me. And that's where our government is set up. 3 separate branches. There's checks and balances, but each of us are separate from the other, and that's what makes America great. I come before you tonight to ask that council approve the same pay increase package recently approved for AFSCME for the employees of the municipal court and clerk of court. Historically, all non-union employees and management level employees were included in Ordinance 165. 165 set out the benefits and regulations that covered all non-union employees in the city. For years, actually decades, the 165 employees would receive the same pay increase that the AFSCME employees received. As a matter of fact, council would approve the increase for 165 employees at the same meeting that council approved or ratified the AFSCME contract. This was a past practice, at least through the Keys and Grace administrations. Based on quick research today, it appears to me that that was a practice for at least 36 years. In 2019, the Brenda administration did a performance audit of the city management employees, resulting in all the management level employees' salaries being removed from Ordinance 165 and placed on separate pay schedules. This actually resulted in those employees, in some cases, receiving increases of over $10,000. One employee received an increase of $19,355.69. It's my understanding that those employees are also considered 165 employees still for pay increases, and that's what the mayor and Mr. Brubaker addressed prior to me coming up here. So those employees are in line to get another 3% and a $500 bonus. From that point on, after the salary study by the Brenda administration, the same day approval of pay increases coinciding with AFSCME increases stopped. From that point on, the judges and the clerk have come to council following council granting pay increases for AFSCME to ask that our employees be treated fairly and equitably with the city employees. Sometimes it took months to achieve what should have happened simultaneously for our employees. Not once did we pursue retroactivity for our employees, although the union employees always received retroactivity. In 2018, the then council, speaking through its president, agreed that this failure to approve pay increases for court and clerk employees at the same time as union increases was unfair and stated it should not happen again. But here we are, all over again. When I say court and clerk employees, who am I talking about? Basically, I'm talking about the 31 full-time court and clerk employees. By the way, that does not include Judge White, does not include me, or does not include Clerk Rothgary. We are prohibited by law from receiving these increases. So we're talking about the rank and file people that work in the municipal court. The city of Elyria has over 460 full-time employees. Our 32 people pale in comparison. Our employees are bailiffs, probation officers, assignment commissioners, compliance officers, deputy clerks, and one IT director. These are the same employees that kept the courts open during the pandemic. We were open every day for business.
Our employees reported to work to ensure that the courts were open, to make sure the rights of our citizens were protected, to make sure that justice was served. The Supreme Court of Ohio made it clear that closing the court was not an option for us. We were told to find ways to stay open and make sure services were provided. When the pandemic first hit, the finance director, along with the mayor, met with Judge White, Clerk Rothgary, and myself, and asked our employees to agree to take furlough to help address the then perceived notion that the city coffers would be drained. Thinking that all city employees would answer the call, our employees agreed to take furlough for 3 pay periods with the promise to reevaluate at the end of 6 weeks. We divided the staff into teams to ensure that we could always keep the court open while reducing the cost of wages. At the end of 6 weeks, we discovered that the city departments and unions did not agree to furlough. We had done our part, but others had failed to follow suit. There are other examples of the courts working to lessen the cost to the city. Elyria is the host city for the court. As such, the city has certain statutory obligations to support the court. These include providing a space, a building, providing cleaning for that space, providing security, providing probation services. The courts have the ability, luckily, to create special funds, which are funds collected through court costs to take care of some court expenses. We have chosen to create special funds to pay for the construction of the John Howard Elyria Municipal Court building, a building envied by judges all over the state of Ohio. I can't tell you the number of courts that have come to see our building and see our operation and want to copy that for their own communities. A special fund to pay routine, consistent cleaning of the building. Special funds to pay for building security. Special funds to pay for probation services, for magistrate services, and for compliance services. The use of special funds has saved the city hundreds of thousands of dollars over the year. If we include the building, actually millions of dollars, including the construction of that beautiful courthouse. Use of those funds also shows that the court understands its responsibility to help defray the cost of hosting the court by this city. We have acted responsibly and fairly to the city. Every day, our employees come to work to see that people are treated fairly, to ensure the administration of justice is done in a thoughtful, fair manner. Everyone in that building contributes to the concept of fairness and justice. I'm here tonight asking that the court and court employees be treated fairly, nothing more or nothing less.
Thank you, Judge Bennett. The judge and I have had a number of conversations dating back to middle of early spring of last year, just on a multitude of things. And I think your letter does state that, and we do agree, I think as a consensus as this committee and as a council as a whole, that their hard work and dedication of those employees over and through there and throughout our city as well. And what we're trying to do here is to try to be fair, and I had spoken to the judge and what was recommended, basically what Safety Service Director Brubaker had stated, and that we would put into the body of the ordinance that we would revisit these potential and take into consideration what ASME had get on a one-year basis. That way it would just kind of be evaluated as we went along to see where our finances were at. And I think, that would be, a fair way to go, and that we would revisit it here again at the end of this year with that, and then see if there's an opportunity to kind of bring it to where ASME is at that date. But we just don't know where we're at with that. And I would hope that would be something that we can work through together. And I see the judge that you're back up there, but if you wanted to make another, I didn't know if you wanted to make another comment.
I would like to, please.
Yes.
And that puts us back to where we've been for years. Every year, come back with hat in hand, beg to be treated fairly, beg to be treated like everybody else, and then wait for months and months at a time to finally get something approved and our employees not get the retroactivity that other people get. We're not talking about the same 165 employees. The 165 employees that I described were the ones that were in the pay study that got thousands of dollars of raises. Court employees didn't get that. The other management level employees got thousands and thousands of dollars worth of raises, and we fought to get 2%. We had some years where it took us almost a year to get that 2 or 3%. We're not the same. We don't need to be treated the same. We need to at least be treated like the ASME employees, which for years, at least 36 years as far as I could tell, has happened in this city. And we're right back to where we started from. Pat on the back, see you next year. That's not fair.
Mr. Tolet.
Out of an issue of fairness, I agree with Judge Bennett. After looking again at the finances, we're looking at roughly 8% of the city employees that we're asking to be treated different. And so I will support following the AFSCME. My support will fall towards the AFSCME, the 3 years, 3%, and same bonus. That's my opinion.
Does anybody else in the Finance Committee have any comments? Ms. Davis.
Through you, Mr. Chair. With the 165, and you're talking about ASME. ASME's employees pays union dues. And so when you paying union dues, and you expect for us to give them the same as people who has representation, I have a problem with that due to the fact that you want me to give them $1,000 and they don't even pay union dues. So if I'm offering you half of $500 at least and no other stipend during the term of the contract, so I just have a problem that they getting the same as my union brothers and sisters.
Mr. Lippian, who's not on the committee, but you're able to weigh in?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm not a member of the Finance Committee. As a guest of the Finance Committee and a member of Council, I'd just like to make a quick comment and make sure that we commend the services of the Municipal Court and Judge Bennett for coming before the Council today, and for the entire Municipal Court team defending and administering our constitutional rights. You know, the mark of great constitutional government, as far as I can tell, is the degree to which it's willing to invest in the enforcement and the upholding of the laws that they establish, and that's the Municipal Court's mission. And so I find this to be a relatively uncontroversial issue, although I would like to echo what the mayor has said, and just insofar as being sure that when we're establishing negotiations with unions, we're being circumspect, because we do establish precedents. So as the judge outlined a precedent that had been established going back about 35 years or so, we do have to be very circumspect in our negotiations when we interface with each other as a community, to ensure that that everybody's getting a fair shake. And I just also want to add, it's crucial, given that there's an IT director involved in the 165, because with the increasing importance of information technology, the last thing we would want to do is not be able to fully support the implementation of technological services to the court, which could sometimes make or break the operational functionality of the court system. So again, just thank you, Judge, for appearing before the Council today. It's an honor to have you, and thank you for the work you and all the municipal court members do.
Very good. Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Perhaps someone can tell me, Eliria is the host city of the Muni Court, is that correct? So is that why all the salaries fall on the city of Elyria and it's not divided equally among the cities who use Muni Court? Anybody? Because it would make sense to me that if North Ridgeville and Oberlin and Lorraine and whomever are using the court, they should be responsible, I think, to play a part in paying the salaries of that court. Or if there's something constitutional that I don't know about, please tell me. I don't know. Thank you.
Ted, you can help me out with this. There's a formula established by state law as to what other cities in the district, in the jurisdiction, what their obligation is. I can't speak to that formula, but I'm sure Ted can.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I believe it's Grafton and LaGrange.
We have Elyria, North Ridgeville as cities, Grafton and LaGrange as villages, and then we have 6 townships.
Right. So every year I do a calculation of the cost to run Muni Court, and that becomes I guess a benchmark for what the other other entities owe us, but they're limited to the amount of fine money they get from Elyria Municipal Court. So the courts has their own checkbook to distribute checks to fine money to the other entities that they serve. And if that number, which it always is lower than their share of the operations, that's what they give us back.
Yeah. And that's by state law. And when you get to places like Grafton and LaGrange and the townships, there's really not a lot of crime in those areas. We have a great deal of business from North Ridgeville and obviously from Eliria. So we're limited as to what their contribution is, but they do make contribution.
Thank you for that information.
Well, Director Deere, did you want to add anything more? Or?
I just wanted to state for the record, I mean, when we're talking about AFSCME, what we colloquially call 165, the employees of the clerk of courts and the municipal court judges, at the time the salary structure was imposed, longevity was done away with for those employees that are now on the salary structure. AFSCME employees still receive longevity. The employees of the clerk of courts and the judges still receive longevity. So there's a lot more, it's a lot more complicated to say like versus like. The employees that are not on the salary structure have A, B, and C as far as moving up through steps. The salary structure now has 12, actually 13, because we have a step 0 because we're government and that's how we do things. So we have 0 through 12, 13 steps. So, there's a lot of components that fall into this. It is true as far as, from what I understand, that yes, the courts do go on furlough. I just want to say for the record, since I know that the media is here, that at that time, and I know many other departments, we cut our budgets. I cut my budget by 10% in other ways. I have a very small number of staff. So, I mean, we cut on things like, I said, look, if you can do free education, you're doing free education. I mean, all those types of things. So, I don't want to say that other people may have done their part. So I just want to set that straight. But I do think it's hard to make comparisons. But as a department head myself, I do think that you need to be careful with making comparisons and saying that non-bargaining and bargaining are the same. And that's all I'm going to say about that from a department head perspective.
Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Judge, you gave a good speech. I do appreciate what everybody's doing. The thing that bothers me, not about just what you're going after right now for your people that work for you, but for all the different departments, the different unions. And it just bugs me that all of a sudden we give somebody, one union, a $500 stipend. Next thing you know, everybody's getting stipends and everybody's getting raises. And at what time does the city council say, hey, enough's enough, we gotta, I don't want you to be the first one, but who's gonna be the first one until our budget runs out and we don't have no money? And so then in a couple of years, all we're trying to do is be fiscal responsible and to make sure everybody gets what they're deserved. And being the first one isn't the funnest. But one time, and I say this, sometimes when these unions we're going up against, we don't want to do it because oh, if we go against them, then it goes to arbitration and we lose, and so the fight is over. And at what point do we say we have to fight? Because if we don't, we're not going to be fiscal responsible and we're not going to be able to pay our bills. So I don't know where that starts. I believe everybody probably deserves a raise. I've never grown up in that situation, so I don't know how that works. But it seems like everybody gets raises, and I've never gotten raises every year, so I don't understand it. And bonuses, signing bonuses. So now it's just going to be automatic. You're just going to get bonuses. So I guess that's just one I want to share, the feeling.
You know, these are difficult decisions to make because, you know, we respect all of our employees and the hard work they do. And, you know, sometimes, you know, these are the tough decisions that you have to make. You know, we're all elected officials. We have to make decisions because we're responsible for and being the good stewards of money of where we're at. And we have accountability to our residents. And we're trying to do the best that we can. What's being kind of proposed by the administration for the Chapter 165 and, you know, the non-bargaining is, you know, a 3% for the first year with a $500 stipend. And what I would say that if the judges in the past, you know, here we are, basically going to be into 3 pays, if that's not correct, Judge, for when this letter was sent out, but I think that would be there. I would consider putting in retro pay for this because that's fair. They had asked us to do this at the end of December for that. They've never asked for it in the past. They've always been, you know, asked us to, you know, not asking for that. So if that's some common ground that we can get to with that, I would be open to the 3% for the first year. We would revisit it at the end of the 2022 year with retro pay for the full-time employees. Now, I do need to get clarification because I believe, Judge, if you can, there might be 10 employees that maybe are not under the 165 that should be considered in this.
Actually, employees that are special fund employees are not general fund employees. They would receive the same benefits, the same increase that the 165 employees paid out of the general fund. The probation officers are partially paid. The 2 full-time security people are totally paid out of special funds. The IT director is paid out of special funds. So that we're not talking about that coming out of the general fund. That's going to come out of our special funds, the money that we collect.
Okay. I just want to make sure that if we were to move forward with this, that everyone would be covered in there. Finance Director Pileski.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, are you referring to, I think there's maybe 10 or 12 part-time employees?
I was just going to say that there's also part-time employees. And our part-time employees consist of 1 magistrate who's an attorney, and she's part-time, and then 6 or 7, we just added another security officer. Security officers who are basically retired law enforcement officers who provide the security for the court. We have 2 full-time and a number of part-time. That's a big building to secure every day. We have literally in a month's time 100-plus prisoners that are brought into the building for hearings. We need security. We are dealing with nasty family situations where there are domestic violence cases, and we have to protect the victims that come into the courthouse. So the need for security is there, and we've done a good job, and we found good security people. Just a little example, when the pandemic hit, and it hit our security department big way back in the beginning of this, we worked with the city, with Mr. Brubaker, and the police department, and the Elyria Police Department provided officers to come over and man the doors, and man the x-ray machines and things that we have to do to provide for the safety of the public, our employees. So there are probably, Ted, roughly 8 to 10 people that are either part-time That would be part-time. That would be the magistrate and the security people. The security people are paid, I think it's $18 an hour. I think we raised it from 16 to 18 when we couldn't get people. Any of you that have business or drive down the road know that every place is looking for employees, and it's hard to get people to work. And we were able to, by increasing it, get a couple more people to come in and work. And they work like 20 hours a week. Nobody works full-time.
Thank you, Judge.
I'm sorry to have taken so much time, but I think it's important that we had this discussion.
Judge, it's very important. You know, you and I have had, like I said, had these conversations, and we respect the municipal court and their employees. There's no discount in that. We understand the what's being considered here, and you know, we're just trying to work through that to try to, if we can come to some common ground. And I had said to you earlier today that we would try to work through this as best we can with it, and that you would have my word that we would revisit it at the end of this first year, and we would put that into the ordinance. So, Mayor Whitfield, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, through you, Chairman. So a couple of things I wanted to address. The one, Councilman Oswald, your comment on the signing bonus piece, and I know that's something that's been fairly new since we've come, and there's a couple reasons why we went in that direction. One was we're trying, when we come to an agreement with the union, as you mentioned, the alternative to not coming to an agreement is paying for attorneys to arbitrate, and then you really lose control of the outcome. So part of it is a reward for, thank you for coming to the agreement with us. Now we can save lawyer money, which could go into your employees' pockets instead of going into an attorney's pocket. And then the second was around trying to save the future. So as opposed to giving a large percentage increase, which you have to pay no matter what in the future, by providing that stipend, you're able to say, well, here's something right now, because we got the money now, but we don't know what the future holds, so we don't want to put a percentage in place that we may not have in the future. So those are the two kind of thought processes around the signing bonus. And to Judge Bennett, to the comment made earlier around 2020 and the other concessions made, I have to agree with Director Deary. A lot of departments did a lot of budget cuts. One of the reasons we have such a strong carryover right now, as was stated before, one of the largest carryovers we've had in recent history, is because of those concessions the department heads made. You know, we also did layoffs, and we laid people off, and I dealt with a lot of heat from laying people off. So I remember those concessions. And the AFSCME union took a 1% increase when others were getting 3% because we were in the midst of the pandemic. So, you know, a part of how we got here today is recognizing that AFSCME actually took some of the greatest concessions during 2020, and how do we make them whole based on the sacrifices they made in 2020 in the height of the pandemic. I didn't mention we also did a hiring freeze as well. So, you know, a part of it, you know, why I think to Director Deary's point, we can't just compare and say this is this group. We have to treat everything individually. And as I mentioned before, I'm in full support of us making sure that those folks over at Muni Court get a 3% increase. And we don't want to have, we want to put in place, our recommendation is to intentionally put in the ordinance and ask council to approve an ordinance that has the meeting happen no matter what, so that you don't have to come and say, well, here's my hat. We come visit and say, hey, where are we at? Because what if the bottom falls from underneath us in the next year and we can only do 2%, but now we've locked in the 3%? You know, I think that's, again, to Councilwoman Davis's point, you know, bargaining units can get away with that because they're unions. They pay dues. Like, that's what they're for. And if folks want to join the union, I think that's a great idea, but otherwise they're not bargaining, and we shouldn't be negotiating multiple year agreements with non-bargaining union or units. So I'm in full support of making sure employees are taken care of. I think this is a fair kind of consolation, even though there is no signing that they're doing, they're still getting a stipend bonus. You know, I can come and support that. Out of respect for the employees and out of respect for you, Judge Bennett, I can support that. And I think we're at a place where that's our recommendation to council.
Why are employees treated differently? Why is there one standard for one group of employees and a second standard for the other? Because someone pays union dues? Have you taken that in consideration when you've settled with the police with fire that's about to happen? They're getting the same kind of packages, aren't they?
Through you, Council President, no, they're not. Each union is getting, and that's what happened in 2020, that's what's happened consistently. The same year ASME got 1% was the year the fire department got 3%. So it's not a blanket, everybody gets the same thing.
Yeah, and the police department got 3%, FOP, the patrolman got 3%, the FOP got 1%, ASME got 1%, the court got 0%. Then in 2020, the patrolman got 1%, the FOP got 2.5%, ASME got 3%, the court got 1%. There was also retroactivity, $1,000 bonuses, $1,500 rolled into salary. Our employees didn't get any of that. So I'm here today asking, treat us fairly, treat us the same. Don't create two standards. And that's what I'm hearing. We're going to create two standards. I'm going to be back here next year and the year after that, like I've been back here since 2017, since the practice that was in place for 35 years stopped. And then we have to come back and we don't talk retroactivity. We don't talk any of those things. We just come over here and we smile and play nice. We're done. And when Mr. Stewart offered retroactivity, I'm assuming we're getting retroactivity with the 333 and the $1,000 bonus. I wasn't conceding that this time, and I think I made that clear in conversations and letters.
So I think everyone has said how they feel. At this particular time, we just have the consideration of, just to get it on the floor, and what was offered by the administration. And then I believe I added a little bit more to that as far as the retro pay. But I need to get a motion, what was being talked at from a member of finance. And we'll put it to a vote. So some of the items that were discussed were, for the non-bargaining full-time employees would be a 3% for 1 year with a $500 stipend, and that it would be revisited at the year end of 2022, and then having retro pay added into, if it's three pays or whatever it is, determined by the finance director's office. So that's kind of the bullet points that are out there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would propose that it would be revisited at the December 12th, 2022 meeting. Put that in our ordinance.
Okay.
And it's a date.
All right. Finance Director Plesky.
Then we need a separate ordinance for the part-time employees? I assume that we're still looking at 3% for the part-time employees that we talked about?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if it's going to be the same percentage and the same stipend for all non-bargaining employees, whether they're full or part-time, then I believe it all could be under one motion and under one committee report. But if we're going to start treating people differently and a different motion, then we're going to need separate motions and separate committee reports, because they'll be separate pieces of legislation. And also just for my own sanity to keep all that straight tonight.
I don't know as if the administration was looking to give all part-timers a 3% raise, but I had heard discussion about the part-time employees at Muni Court, so I just wanted to make sure that I know who we're paying. Is it just full-time employees?
I think that'll be up to what the motion is that's brought forward by the committee. So, but I echo your request for purposes of writing this up, and also for you to be able to administer and facilitate it.
Yeah. Mayor Whitfield.
Yeah, through you, Council President. So Director Brubaker and I were just chatting, and it sounds like their part-time employees are treated, they're a little bit different in terms of how they're classified and treated, and they're almost like permanent part-time folks versus some of our employees that are part-time are more seasonal in and out. So we wouldn't want to treat just a blanket all part-time employees, but I think we want to target those 10 employees and make sure that they, get the same thing that the rest of the employees are getting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have to kind of take a little bit of somewhat of a recess to kind of get this all together, to put it down, because there's so many fluid parts to what we're trying to do here. I guess my question is, does anybody else have any other comments before we kind of go through this path? Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair, are there any part-time employees in the city outside of the court? Do we have part-time employees right now working in the city?
Yes, we do.
I mean, through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, for example, I have a part-time prosecutor who's permanent, part-time, I guess is how I'd classify it, as an example.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
So my next question is then, there is more than just those few that's over to the court. What he says, how many is there's part-time at the court, 10?
10, yes.
Okay, so there's 10 there, and you have one? So,
Right.
is it? Thank you.
I didn't mean to start a controversy here, but I heard a discussion about the 10 employees at Muni Court, and I was assuming that the judge wanted them also to have a 3% raise. So maybe we can have the judge come back up and...
I'll be honest, we only have one part-time employee that I would consider in that group, and that's the traffic magistrate. What we've done in the past when we've increased the security guards, we're paid on an hourly basis. We've done that because it comes out of special fund. None of that is general fund money. We've done that by court order, and we've sent them over to Ted, and it's not been a problem. They receive really no benefits other than sick time and whatever wages they make. So that's how we've handled them in the past. I would not expect, and sorry if I made people think I was expecting them to get to 3%. I don't. The only part-time employee would be the magistrate. And then we'll take care of the security people. Like I said, I think it was last year, Ted, we went to 18. So in the last year, they went from 16 to 18. They got a pretty significant increase. But that was all paid out of the special security fund. So none of that's general fund money at all.
So, Council Pres, after hearing that, I rescind my comment about the part-time.
I think this has really gotten to be really complicated and confusing, because it was an intent to give people an opportunity, give them a salary, a cost of living raise of 3%, and a $500 stipend or bonus the way that it was. And trying to be fair, and it just seems like it's, if these employees that we appreciate, we're just trying to do the right thing. And now it's just because it's not enough that we need to have more, and we need to have more. And that goes across for all the bargaining units, because quite frankly, at the end of year 3, we're going to be hurting, and there's going to have to make decisions made. And we're just trying to do the right thing here. And the judge is here fighting for his employees, and for Judge White and for Council Clerk Courts Rothgary, and I get it. But we're trying to do the right thing here as well, and making sure that those employees are taken care of at this particular time, for this 1 year that's being considered, and the retro pay. So at this time, I need some direction from the Finance Committee on how they want to proceed. Mr. Sierra?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't want to drag this out any further than we have to, but would it make any sense at all to go to a 2-year And that would still give us some advance time to see what year three is gonna look like. I don't know if that's doable or not at this point.
I would say that it is a consideration that can be made. But it's out there that, I mean, that's something that we can do if the finance director wants to weigh in on it, but anybody else from the finance committee want to weigh in on what's being discussed? Ms. Davis.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I am in agreement with a $500 stipend and no more than a 2-year contract so we can revisit at the end.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would just note that this isn't a contract, Mrs. Davis, but I know I understand.
Excuse me, the agreement. Okay, not contract, agreement. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, did you need that in the form of a motion?
Well, Mr. Tillett was going to make a statement or anything like that, but I know that we do need to have some type of a form of a motion. So just to hit the bullet points again that was being asked or being talked about were a 1-year 3% raise with a $500 stipend to be revisited for all full-time non-bargaining Chapter 165 employees. There was an option then of, talked about, just added by Mr. Sierra, of adding a second cost of living wage of 3% with, the $500 stipend. I had put out there that in regards to the retroactive pay, whatever those pay period would be from, and that it would be, again, revisited with what Director Deary said in December of 12th of 2022 would be brought up again before this committee. So there's a lot to go through and talk about. If we went right. So I guess those are the things that we need to consider. Finance Director Pulaski, if you want to weigh in on doing it a 2-year instead of a 1-year.
Through you, Mr. Chair. First of all, Judge Bennick was correct. Years ago, going back, well, I've been here a long time, but we've all, when AFSCME's contract was approved, on that particular night, they also adjusted Chapter 165 employees, and at that time, there were no salary structure. It was, the old ordinance. However, I don't ever recall us doing multiple years on that night. I think we always went back each year and adjusted the non-bargaining. But you certainly can do a 2-year, we can do a 2-year exhibit on the ordinance.
So, Mr. Tillett.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would support if we put an ordinance that we did 2-year 500 bonus, retro pay going back. I would support that.
And revisiting it
in December of 2023, and we put that in ordinance.
That is a motion. I guess the other thing, okay.
I have a question. I want to make sure that the 500 bonus is only for the first year. Is it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, then I would suggest that whoever makes the motion, that would be part of your motion.
Yes, but that would be revisited then in 23.
Well, everything's brand new in 2023.
Correct. That's the motion.
Could you repeat that?
Okay. The motion would be a 2-year agreement, 3%, $500 stipend, revisit all of it in December of 2023, and we would make pay retroactive to January 1.
I will second that motion.
Second by Mr. Sierra. Is there any further this is for all non-bargaining, right? Is it moved by Mr. Tillett, second by Mr. Sierra? Is there any further discussion?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll have to get, if you want us to go back to when, for the first pay period, it'll be before January 1st, so the effective date will be, I'll have to give you the date when the beginning of that pay period was, but it'll be pay period 1, 2, 3 of this year. And if we probably won't get to it until after pay period 4, so whatever, we'll implement the increases as soon as possible, but retro pay, obviously, we'll keep track of how many pays we have to do.
Very good. Law Director Deering.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Pileski, will it be effective in any legislation to say effective the first pay period of 2022?
First pay period,
First pay period
yes.
of 2022 to address the retroactivity? That will work?
Yeah, because
Okay,
it's gonna include probably a couple days in December, actually, as the effective date, but you can make it effective for the first pay period
Okay,
of 2022.
okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Wait,
Well, maybe I'm wrong.
Mr. Farrell.
No, he's corrected. It would be pay period 1 of 2022, but I didn't hear anything in the committee report about the traffic magistrate, who is a part-time employee.
Non-bargaining.
Through you, Mr. Chair, my understanding is it'll be all non-bargaining employees.
Oh, no.
It wasn't specified full-time.
Oh.
All.
All.
Right, correct,
All.
but all non-bargaining
All non-bargaining.
would, unless we specify, you have pool guards, you got ice rink, those are all part-timers as well, so I just wanna,
Well, that's what's up, that's what's been up for discussion. Are we including part-time? Are we not including part-time?
I don't believe we were discussing that, no.
Well, that was what the motion was.
Judge Bennett.
If you don't mind, Ted, correct me, but in the past, the magistrate is also paid out of a special fund, and I believe we've increased her pay by ordinance when we got increases for the other employees.
I think you're right. It
John, do
doesn't
you
really
know?
matter what fund it is, but I believe that there is one position that we always included in with the full-timers. One part-time person?
Yeah, the only person it could be was the magistrate, but I thought we did that by administrative order when the other employees got raises. I
Oh,
thought
that's fine.
just like we did
No.
with the security people, they're separate from
Full-time?
everybody
Yeah,
else.
that's fine.
All right.
I think that solves it maybe, if,
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that discussion, and Ted. So I think just for the record purposes, Councilman Tolet, if you would please just reiterate your motion again to have discussion and put it on the floor again, just so that we're all clear.
to go back on the floor again, this would be 2 years. It would include retro pay. It would include a $500 stipend. It would not include, I misspoke, I apologize. It would not include part-timers. And we would revisit it at the first council meeting in December of '23. That's the motion.
That's the motion. Does the second concur?
yes.
Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Judge Bennett, I appreciate you coming up. I know we're trying to work through this. You have my word. We'll get through it back here when we revisit in 2023.
No, that's right.
Thank you, Judge.
They got more money, they don't have to.
Thank you, committee. All right. Item number 4. I'm just going to move forward. Law Director Deary will fill out the committee report as it was relayed by Councilman Tolet regarding the previous item we just addressed. We're going to move on to item number 4. We've considered the matter of a water supply revolving loan account, agreement for the replacement of the lead and galvanized service lines, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for and accept if offered the said loan agreement and/or grant through the Ohio EPA. Emergency standard applies. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
That was moved by Mr. Tolet? No? Mr. Sarah?
Yes.
Second by Ms. Davis. Mr. Jacob?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We applied for 2 other loans last year. They're forgivable loans, $1 million apiece. We got both of them. There's more money offered this year. We're in the process of applying for another $1 million forgivable loan for more lead service line replacements in the city.
Mr. Jacob, can you give us an update on what's been done thus far? A brief synopsis of what's been replaced? I guess would Broad Street be one of those items where we replace all these lines?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the phase 1 has been done. Phase 2 is ongoing right now. When the second phase is done, we'll have replaced little over 550 lead service lines and galvanized lines in the city. That includes on the private side, when they're replacing the city side, we see galvanized or lead. We have to replace that at our cost too. We have probably 400 or 500 more lead service lines. This $1 million grant will get us almost where we're done throughout the city.
Are there more targeted areas where these are more prevalent in our city, or just all over the place?
Well, there's different areas. Mr. Rothgary's now drawing up the list for the third loan.
Okay.
What we're doing is, I believe tomorrow, the nomination form to get us on the list is getting submitted. And then in the next couple of months, I'll be working with the finance director and administration to do all the other paperwork that needs to be done. Hopefully, we'll get it.
Very good. Thank you. For any questions for Mr. Jacob? All right. Number 6. Number 5. We've considered the matter of the replacement of lead and galvanized service lines, public and private lines throughout the city, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the replacement of said lines. Emergency clause is requested. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Mr. Jacob.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Once we submit the application, when we get close to the July 1st deadline, we have to advertise for bids and get a contract ready. And then if we're awarded the $1 million forgivable loan, then the mayor will sign the contract. But we have to have all this in place to do this ahead of time, just like we've done 2 times last year.
Sure. Any other questions for Mr. Jacob? Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Jacob. Item number 6, we've considered the matter of a change order number 2 for the additional quantities for the 2021 crack sealing program. An ordinance authorizing the said change order for the 2021 crack sealing program. Monies for this have been appropriated in the 2022 temporary budget. The change order is in the amount of $20,035. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tolet.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sarah. Engineer McKillips.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is an item requesting approval for change order number 2. Again, for the 2021 crack sealing program, this is an annual program. This provides maintenance for our roads that we have recently resurfaced. It basically increases the longevity of the roads, and hopefully we can prolong the life and make the roads rideability last longer than without the crack sealing. Last year we did over 47 streets. This includes both asphalt and concrete streets. And in addition to the residential streets, a section of State Route 57, parts of Abbey Road, we also crack sealed City Hall parking lot and parking lots at East Park Rec Center and West Park as well.
Okay. So that is an invaluable service that we need to do to kind of keep our roads in the, after we put the money into our streets, we should try to do the best we can to maintain them. Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I guess I learned something today because I asked for one of our engineers to drive down Naples from Burns Road to Antioch. And it's like a roller coaster, thump, 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 and everything is heaving every 10 feet. So this person gave me a bit of information that I didn't know, that because that was all crack sealed, and the reason is so you fill the cracks, the ice doesn't, water doesn't go down there and pop it up like that, but it is. Well, the pavement's a movable product. It's not like concrete that just cracks. The pavement will actually fall back in place, and that crack will come down, and that filler will actually fill back in. So once it gets nicer weather, that will get better. So if anybody rides down some roads like that, I go that way all the way. Well, I used to go that way all the way. So I just thought I'd give you that bit of information. Thank you. Mr. Chair.
Is there any further discussion?
Call for the question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, item number 7. We've considered the matter of the body-worn cameras and in-car cameras for the police department. An ordinance authorizing to enter into a 5-year contract with Axon Enterprises Incorporated for said equipment for the Elyria Police Department. Can I get a motion to get on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Seroff.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Just to kind of start things off, this is kind of one of the requests that we thought that when we were campaigning for issue 6, the 0.5% renewal, that this is one of our priorities that we wanted to fund and look into and invest into the body cameras. And so it would be a part of our, the police officers and our citizens, that would be a true representation of what's out over and through there. And now we've started this process, and Chief Pelko's here to kind of to explain to what's going on and what's before us here tonight for consideration. Chief Pelko.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So we've been exploring body-worn cameras and in-car cameras. We put a committee together with our IT department, the Safety Service Director, communications, and the police department. And we feel that the body cameras will be a benefit not only to the police department, but to the citizens of Elyria. It'll provide more accountability and transparency to them. It will improve officer performance and civilian conduct. It'll be an unbiased and impartial witness. It'll provide evidence for cases, which hopefully will expedite cases and provide a faster resolution to cases. We'll use it for training and development. We'll use it for our field training officers, for our new patrolmen that we recruit. We'll use it for corrective training. We'll use it to evaluate our officers. And ultimately, past studies from other departments show that there's a reduction in complaints and use of force complaints when you have body-worn and in-car cameras. And we can also use these cameras to identify and correct problems or weaknesses that we see that our officers are doing when we use these cameras. Along with the body-worn cameras and the in-car cameras, IT explained to me that our MCT, our mobile computer terminals in our patrol cars are outdated and will not support the software for these cameras. So we would also have to need to update our our mobile computer terminals in our car in order to get these body-worn cameras and in-car cameras compatible.
Okay, so Chief, what you just explained there, is that not part of this? That would be an additional cost for that?
So there's three costs.
Okay.
So the $645,589.50 is for the body-worn cameras. Be paid out over 5 years. And I broke it down. The first year is $197,269.46 for the first year, and the following years after that are $112,080.01. That would be for the body cameras that we wear. For the in-car cameras, the total price is going to be $443,872 over 5 years. $90,560 would be for the first year, and $88,328 would be for every year after that. Now, for the mobile computer terminals, IT got a quote on that, and that is going to be $114,000 through Telrepco to update and replace those.
Okay. Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Chief, the in-car cameras, and I'm going back now maybe 18 months, there was some discussion, are these the cameras that project out to the scene, or are these the cameras, the in-car cameras that project back towards who you've just arrested? How do they work?
They would be both.
They do both?
Yes. Yep.
I am excited.
There's actually going to be triggers on the door, so like when we open the door to put the prisoner in, it'll automatically set the camera to go off so it starts recording in the back seat.
The former chief talked about how important having that camera is that goes back to who you've just arrested and how much information is garnered from that.
Yeah, so it's invaluable, so.
Okay.
So how long before, Chief, if we move forward with this, will this become to being part of the service? What's the timeline on this?
Due to with the supply chain and everything, we're probably looking anywhere from 4 to 6 months to get the equipment here and then get it installed. Again, depending on the supply chain.
Okay, very good. Okay, Law Director Deary, other than, does anybody else have a question in regards? Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not on finance, so thank you for indulging me. Through you to Finance Director Pileski, how much does issue 6, or how much did we say we were putting aside in issue 6 for these cameras?
We've already appropriated $295,000 this year for this year's payment.
Thank you.
So
and if
then,
I may,
then next year we'll cover the next payment and so on, so.
Thank you. And if I may, Mr. Stewart, did Elyria get a grant? I know some cities, Chief, were offered a grant for the body cameras. Was Elyria a part of that?
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. I'm sorry, so Mr. Farrell just addressed that the $114,000 is not appropriated in the $295,000.
Yeah. That 114 is for the computer upgrades? Okay. So we have to appropriate that yet?
Okay.
Because those first two were like 287.
Right.
295. So
okay.
All
right. Okay. And so, Ms. Mitchell, there are grants out there. We did not apply for the last grant because we were not ready for it yet. But we're anticipating there is a grant this year for that, and when the time comes right, we will apply for that for some reimbursement for those funds.
I guess a question before Law Director Deary weighs in. Do we need to make this part of the committee report as far as where these funds would be coming from? Or We know it's already in there. I just want to confirm before we know that they're 0.5% income or.
Through you, you can include it, but it's already appropriated.
Okay, just want to make sure.
For the first, on the body cams and I guess the software is the second part, whatever these two invoices are, we've got $295,000 appropriated in the 2016.50% income tax fund.
Okay.
Chairman,
Mr.
yes,
Farrell?
so the first two items that Chief Pelko had mentioned, those are included in the 295,000. There's a slight difference. I think that there's 197 and 90, I think. So it's like 287. But the 114 for the upgrade to the computers in the vehicles, that isn't in any appropriation as of this point. Of course, the 295, I don't think it's in the temporary, but it'll be in a permanent.
I think,
Actually, the temporary for the issue 6 is the permanent at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. With that being said, then, Law Director Deere, you wanted to weigh in as far as an emergency?
Yes. I was just going to inquire, Chief, it would be my recommendation that this would go with an emergency clause just due to the supply chain issues, and obviously the quicker that this legislation passes, the quicker that we can get to work on the contract and the quicker then we get in the line to get this equipment. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. And then also, it is my understanding in working with a committee that's been putting all this together that this is a state purchasing equivalent. Therefore, we don't have to go out for bid or do a request for proposals. So that's why we're able to secure the pricing on this as well, just to let the committee know. So, and that's all I have.
Does anybody else have any questions in regards to Mr. Lippian?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Again, not a member of the Finance Committee, but thank you, Mr. Chair, for acknowledging me. So just a question, Chief. With the retention periods on these recordings, because this is going to be important record and the data is going to pile up, has there been a discussion of what kind of retention period these camera data files are going to have in order to ensure good data management policies and retention?
We would have to develop a policy and a retention policy on that. As far as if there was a major event or something, we would tag that and retain it for the length of the case and stuff. But in speaking with everyone else, you'd have to have a retention policy and develop a set standard of how many days where you would retain certain video that's not relevant for. We'd have to look into that.
I'm just sort of imagining that the data limit is going to begin to stack up. So that's probably going to be part of the financial considerations as well. So that's why I raised the question.
Yes.
Thank you.
That was a question I was going to ask, so I'm glad you segued to it, but I guess that's for another meeting, I guess, is how this is all going to be, the purchasing of the equipment and implementing the equipment, but then just trying to have that information, how it's downloading it, and what that whole process is. So I guess that's just for another, because it's going to become at a cost, I would believe. Mr. Williams, if you want to weigh in, or Law Director Deere, if you want to weigh in if Mr. Williams comes up.
Yes, I was just going to say, and I'm sure Mr. Williams will have more on this. I will state note that the IT department, as well as communications, Mr. Showalter and Mr. Henderson have been a core part of these discussions, and also weighing the pros and cons of several of these vendors. And obviously the retention, as well as public records matters. They've been obviously more than helpful from that in that respect. So.
Thank you.
To you, Council Pres. I just would like to commend all the departments, including the police department, law department, communications, IT. This going down this journey is a big deal for the city of Elyria. It's a big deal in any community to institute body cams, and there's a lot at stake. And I just want to commend them, and Director Williams in particular, for helping to convene this committee so that this was done in a collaborative way, where it wasn't one group pushing and another group pulling. we kind of sat around the table together and talked about all these challenges that you brought up. So just want to commend the group.
Yep. Mr. Williams?
Yes, and Director Deary, thank you. That's what I was going to speak to. There has been lots of discussion on retention, on many different facets, and what we expect is once we get through this part of the process, there will be a presentation, probably a representative from the company will be here also, and they will share with us exactly how this thing works, the system. It's amazing. We sat in on presentations of multiple companies, and it's really, really, I think you'll appreciate how dynamic this new component is of technology.
And I would recommend that, a presentation for council at a date to be determined when we can kind of get that all together. That way you can just kind of see how the system, what we're investing in is going to, be put in use. All right. Is there any further discussions or questions? Oh, Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just more of a comment. And with the citizens of Elyria, just like the mayor mentioned, that this is a great opportunity, and we feel comfortable and appreciate you, Captain, in moving forward with this. And truly, I want to thank Issue 6 and the residents, because this is a great opportunity through Issue 6 that we are able to move forward with this. Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you, Chief. Just to confirm, does the motion concur that this needs to be as an emergency?
Yes.
Does the second concur? Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 8, we consider the matter of the appointment of 3 council members to the Elyria Economic Development Committee for a 2-year term. In ordinance authorizing a set appointments to the EEDC for the years 2022 and 2023. Those council members are Vic Stewart, Phil Tollett, and Donna Mitchell. Can I get a motion and get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Ms. Davis.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sierra. This is just a committee that, Councilman Tollett and I have been on, and then Jack Baird, and it's a group that we get together, and we talk about opportunities for individuals in the downtown who are doing revamping, or if we help our small business with the CARES Act or the ARPA funds. But I'm going to let Ms. Calvert segue into it a little bit more. Ms. Calvert?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You were doing a fantastic job. So I'll just say, yes, the EEDC acts in an advisory capacity for City Council on issues of economic development incentives and grant programs. In rare instances, such as the ARP Small Business Grant Program, the EEDC actually acts as an authorizing body, and that was written into the program guidelines for that. So we really rely on the EEDC to give us feedback on any incentives that we're negotiating or grant programs that need formal authorization, so that we can feel confident that when we approach City Council that we've done it as a team and that we've reviewed things and heard feedback as required. So we meet on an as-needed basis. I will say we have a number of ARP Small Businesses grants that need to be formally approved, so that as-needed basis is pretty urgent at this moment. And then we'll continue to meet as required to review those incentives and grant programs.
Any questions for Ms. Calvert in regards to the committee? All right. This is an emergency. Does the motion concur?
I concur.
And the second?
I concur.
Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is the matter of consideration of appointment of 1 council member to the Joint Economic Development District Board, the JED. Is an ordinance authorizing said appointment to the JED for the years of 2022 and 2023? Yes. Yes. Then the appointment would be Chad Schneider, Councilman Chad Schneider. Can I get, in the standard emergency would apply to this, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. I'm going to let Director Brubaker take this one as far as the joint economic development.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So for this one, this is with the Elyria Township Joint Economic Development District. Mr. Schneider will have the honor and the privilege to join me once a quarter on a Friday morning where we meet with township trustees to review any other business that needs to be discussed regarding the economic development district that we have with Elyria Township. Usually that is referring to the dollars and cents that have come in from their businesses within the district that is shared between the city of Elyria and the township. That report is generally put together and sent over to them by our finance director, and then we review that data and any other information. And sometimes the engineer will join us in regards to any projects that are going over. Recently, they just finished the new Westwood complex, and I know we had some tie-ins with the sewer over there, so the engineer's office attends that as well.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Question?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Last item on the agenda is the matter of the amending of the 2022 temporary appropriations and ordinance authorizing to amend 22 temporary appropriations per the attached. We will be adding to this based on tonight's discussions. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Ms. Davis.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Mr. Pileski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have three tonight. Two are on the handout. I'm going to add one. So the first one is in the Water Fund, Water Miscellaneous Department, capital outlay account, adding $3,110,000 to capital outlay, and that is for $1,250,000 for the Clark Street Water Tower Improvement Project, $340,000 for the Second Street and Cedar Street Water Main Project, $1,120,000 for the Oberlin Elyria Road Water Main Project, $250,000 for the 16th Street Water Main Improvement Project, and $150,000 for the Water Lateral Replacement Project. The second one, don't laugh at this, but we have $5 left in the local coronavirus relief fund, and we have a couple of months to spend it, and I don't want to turn it back in, so appropriating $5 in the COVID-19 miscellaneous operating and maintenance account. And then the last one is the $114,000 that we just spoke of, the upgrades to the computers in the police cars, and we'll appropriate that in the 2016.50% income tax fund, police department, capital needs, capital outlay account.
Good. Thank you, Finance Director Pileski. Is there any further discussions in regards to what those items are for the temporary?
Call for the question.
Questions been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. There's nothing more to come before this committee. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Moved and second. Is there any further discussion?
Question?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you.
Two POs. Well, you can.
Thank you, Reverend.
PO for order some supplies or something, then we'll just use the $5 PO, close it on the payment, and then split it with some other account.